Apologetics is a discipline in Christian ministry that calls the Christian to defend essentially what we believe. Every Christian that finds himself in every culture finds himself having to battle a worldview or the other. So we are always called, or the Lord calls us to defend what we believe. We followed the book of 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 15 that says that we should give a defense of what we believe. And in every culture there are already established worldview. In fact, we all were born into cultures with established worldviews. Okay, and it is safe to even say that the predominant religious worldview, at least in Nigeria, is Islam, Christianity, and then of course we have to give a place for the traditional worshippers also these days. So that's the place for our apologetics. So the Christian, when he comes into an environment, he wants to defend what he believes. He wants to counter established worldview. He wants to counter established desires, and he wants to show to the world why his own ideas are the better one and the reason why the world should accept it. Okay, the predominant discussion in our world today is that let's allow everybody to have their thinking. Let's allow everybody to go on with their worldview, and let's allow everybody to do whichever way they want. Okay, we in the world of theology, we call these pluralities. Okay, so we allow for, the world calls us to have for all diverse views to exist, but in reality this is not functional, and that's the reason why you have countries like America insisting that a democratic ethos should prevail in every society. So by the time you pursue issues to the minimum basis, you'll find out that one worldview ultimately will prevail. And in fact, the reason why people go to war is so that they could establish a worldview in a political space, and so that people can benefit from this. Why am I talking about apologetics today? I'm saying all of this because of the two essays that I wrote some 2 or 3 days ago, which I was talking about the traditionalist. I encountered this traditionalist, and he helped me to set up a solar system into my house, and we began to talk, and he explained to me that he used to be a pastor in a popular church in Nigeria, and now he is no longer a pastor. In fact, he rose up to the point of being an area pastor, in that church, and then now he's a traditionalist. So what led you to traditionalism? And that is how what those articles consist of. Okay, now the reason why I'm making this video is as a response to the predominant response or the predominant replies to that video. A lot of people that I have a lot of respect for got back to me and they said, let the traditionalist be. Somebody even reached me from Germany and told me, he said, allow this guy to be, because I myself, this guy was reaching me, he said, I myself am a traditionalist, and the way things are going, it is the traditional worldview that will prevail. Now, it makes some sense at the periphery, if you look at it at face value, it makes some sense. Why? Because the traditional worldview is what our fathers used to practice, at least until 1814. Most of what our fathers believed was a traditional worldview. And then ultimately, before the 19th century, we had Islam. And then in the middle of the 19th century, we had Christianity. And before you know it, by the time we're entering into the 20th century, Islam and Christianity are taking over most of what people believe as far as religion is concerned. So why will anybody, or why will I want to contend with the traditionalists, or why will I want to say the traditional worldview is not the right one, but the Christian worldview is the right one? The reason is because of what I'm doing now, apologetics, okay? And that is what I want to do. I want to give a defense or the Christian gospel, or the Christian worldview. And how do I start that? Well, one of the biggest proof of the truth of Christianity today is the presence of a people called the Jews. And many of us do not appreciate it because the Jews are naturally white-skinned, and they are not. You don't find Jews in Africa. You don't find them in Nigeria. But with the presence of social media, I have been coming across a lot of Jews. In fact, I came to even realize that Europe has Jews all over. America has Jews all over. Jews are everywhere in the white world, if you use that word, except in Africa. Okay, so the presence of Jews is proof of Christianity. Why do I say so? I say it because of this. The Bible records, or the Old Testament is a record of God's dealings with the Jews. Okay, now something very, very incidental happened to the Jews. Most countries, or most people are preserved by a geographical entity. They are preserved by a geographical space. But the Jews from AD 70, that's after death, after Christ, 70 years, or AD 70, the Jews ceased to have a geographical space. They ceased to live in Palestine. They were dispersed by Titus, the Roman soldier and his men, and the Jews, and their temple was destroyed, and the Jews ceased to have a geographical entity. Now, in spite of the fact that the Jews did not have a geographical entity, the Jews still remain a people till today. And how did that come about? It came about, I believe, number one, by the providential preserving of the true God of the Bible. Providential preservation of the true God of the Bible. The second one is this: it came about by their religion. And that is why I am going to have to be first in this defense of the Christian gospel to read a conversation that God had with the Jews, and then eventually tie it up with with Christianity and the truth of the Christian gospel. And this is what I mean. I'm going to open to Deuteronomy chapter 4, and I'm going to begin to read from verse 8. Please pay some attention to this scripture. And what nation is there so great? Now, this is Moses telling the people of Israel what God is saying to them. Okay? And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I have set before you this day? Only take heed to yourself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thy eyes have seen, and lest thou depart from thy heart all the days of thy life, but teach them to thy sons and thy sons' sons. So what is Moses talking about here? He's talking about the 10 commandments. Okay, Deuteronomy is basically the second giving, or the second telling of the 10 commandments. Moses is basically telling them, look, I'm leaving you, but I am giving you I'm reiterating this 10 commandments to you again. Verse 10, especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in Horeb, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. And you came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire unto the midst of heaven, with darkness and clouds and thick darkness. And the Lord spake unto you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of his word, but saw no similitude. Only you heard a voice. Why is this important? It is important, like I said, Moses is reiterating the law to the people of Israel, but Moses is stating a particular point, which is saying, do not ever forget this. What happened? God came to the people of Israel at Mount Horeb, and God spoke his words to them. And that occurred in Exodus chapter 20. In speaking to them, God enumerated 10 commandments, his laws, 10 commandments, and he said, by these laws, you, my people, are going to be governed. By these laws, you, my people, must live. Okay, verse 13. And God declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even the 10 commandments. And he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might do them in the land whither you go over to possess it. Take ye therefore good heed unto thyself, for you saw no manner of similitude on that day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of fire, lest you corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water beneath the earth. Unless thou lift up thy eyes unto heaven, when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, and even all the hosts of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God has divided unto all the nations under the whole heaven. But the Lord had taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as you are today. What is this talking about? This basically saying that God came to you, the maker of the heavens and the earth, came to a set of people and spoke to them and said, these are my commandments. Okay, these are the 10 commandments. Incidentally, the first 2 commandments says, do not worship any other God but me. Then the second one says, do not make anything, any graven image. Do not make an image and call it your God. Okay, I am the living God, and you know me by my laws. You know me by my do's and my don'ts. You know me by certain specifics. Okay, we call this the Judeo-Christian worldview. That's what we call it. Okay, so where am I coming from? I'm saying that today the mere presence of the Jews on earth is a testimony or a testament to the fact, and their preservation is a testament to the fact that there is and there was a God, or there is a God who had once associated with these people and had given them his laws. And today, the world that we have in our hands, the functional world that we have in our hands, the world of modernity, the world of progress, and the world of science that we have today is built essentially on the Judeo-Christian worldview. Okay, all the boundaries that we have, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not fornicate. Okay, all those boundaries that were, thou shalt not covet what is not yours, all those healthy boundaries that make up the laws of nations were gotten from the Judeo-Christian worldview. So one of the proof of the fact that our God exists and our God is the true God is the existence of the Jews themselves and the words that God spoke to the Jews. Now, the second thing that the Jews point to us is this whole the idea of something we call the point of election, or the grace of God, or the preferences of God. Now, this is very contentional, and I'm not going to go deep into it. But the reality still remains that of all the nations of the world in those days, of all the kingdoms, we had the kingdom of Egypt, we had the kingdom of Babylon, we had the kingdom of the Assyrians, all of them. God chose only one people. In fact, we also had the Arabs then, but God chose only one people, and they were the Jewish people, and called those people his own people. This points to a concept called grace. It points to the concept that God, as of those days and even till now, still extends mercy and grace to a few. Okay, so how then do we find this grace of God? First, the first point I hope I have established is the fact that the Judeo-Christian worldview rules the nation. Okay, the progress that we have known in our world today, the modernity that we know in our world today, comes from a Judeo-Christian worldview. But the second one is this, that the Christian gospel is hinged upon the concept of grace. It's hinged upon the fact that God chooses a few people to follow him. Just as he did with the Jews, he has also extended it now to all the nations. In fact, the whole story of the New Testament is that Jesus Christ came to save his people, the Jews, but also extended that mercy to the Gentile world. Okay, so that as many who believe in him, they will be saved. So my duty is not to sit back and watch and say, okay, thank God this person has become a traditionalist, he has chosen his own path. No, my duty is to be able to preach the gospel of Jesus to the nations and to be able to help every man to hear it, so that as many who have ears to hear, they will come to living faith in Christ and they will be saved. The Christian worldview is a worldview that is exclusive. We insist that our worldview is right and every other worldview is wrong. Okay, that's what we insist on. It may sound non-tolerant, it may sound contentious, it may sound like we are not accommodating, but that is what our Bible calls us to do. Now, what the Christian will not do, no Christian is going to take a gun and put on your head and insist you should believe on his God. Okay, no Christian is going to take a knife and put on your neck and say, except you believe, you are not, you're not going to be saved. No, ours is a contention for ideas. We're not going to enter the market of ideas and say that all ideas are welcome. No, we say ours is right, others are wrong, and we continue the debate. Okay, and that it is also the Christian worldview that permits for freedom of speech. In fact, it's the Christian worldview that allows for something like a social media, where everybody can write whatever they want on social media and everybody comes and presents an idea with the hope that the best idea will prevail. Okay, but whether you agree or not, let us still come back to those basic laws. How many people are going to be married to a woman today and sit pretty in their room or parlor while somebody comes into their house, take their wife from them, goes out, sleep with the wife, and return the woman? How many people can live with adultery? Okay, while you can commit adultery, you would not allow for your partner to commit it. So you can see clearly that the Christian worldview in itself is actually right. Okay, how many people are allowed for killing? All right, except in a war situation, we all know that every man has a right to his life. You know, and then the same thing with property. Everybody has their boundaries. You can't just enter another person's house and pick up his car, or pick up his washing machine, or pick up his phone. If it doesn't belong to you, it's not yours. Okay, so it is the Christian worldview that defines all of that. But you see, the last 6 commandments of the 10 commandments talks about our relationship with one another, and it is easy for us to imbibe all of those 6 commandments and use them to establish our laws. But before the 6 commandments came, we had the first 4. Okay, the first one says you worship God alone. Okay, second one, you do not make an image that looks like God. Okay, there is a one that says that, I think the 4th commandment, that says that we should not, we should separate a day, the Sabbath day, unto the Lord, and that's why Christians worship on Sunday. Okay, so I make this video basically to wrap up. I might be writing a 3rd article, I'm not sure, you know, but basically to wrap up this discussion I was having with the traditionalists. The traditional position is wrong. In fact, it's a breaking of the first 2 commandments of God. Okay, the God that we serve is the Christian God. Okay, and and if you say we should become traditionalists, then which of the traditionalists are we going to worship Shango now, or Batara, or Eshu? Which of them? You know, so that we begin that debate all over again. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. Thank you for listening.